Hello.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey. What's happening?
I just read your post on Brongni art.
Hang on, I gotta switch phones. This one's not loud enough.
Oh, okay.
Try me again?
Yeah, I said I just finished reading over your post on Alexander Brongni art.
Brongni art, yeah.
Yeah, and he
Brongni art.
Brongni art.
Alexander.
Yeah.
It
studied.
kind of gives an evolutionary pattern to human beings. Reptilians, as they come out of the caves, because they're bats in the first order, and they become amphibians. Then you have the next one, which is the mission of one, Chelonia, and then that word is a play on Caucasians and Indians, Ophidia, and then it's ruse, the next version.
Sorina.
We're at the Ophidian stage, according to this. And trilobites, which is what we are basically going to be as part of the ruse. He's inferring, I guess, that what goes around comes around. What we've been, we will be.
360.
Explains a little bit why the pineal gland has links to fish and to reptiles.
I remember you saying that the gill would be around the neck, but recently you say that it'll be out of the neck, in the chest or something like that.
Yeah, in the cleavage.
Why'd you change? Then you said it was something about the eye or something would be in the breast and something like that.
Yeah, the neck seemed at first to be the more appropriate place for access to the lungs, but because it's pretty well occupied with the medulla and the eventual total slave will have a pouch, therefore raise its child in a pouch like a kangaroo. It's probably more efficient should it be directly linked above the pouch. The rest of it is pretty well based upon what's going on right now. That there was a move with the Amazon, basically get rid of a breast to make them better adapted to shooting off arrows. But the breast is such a great cover for hiding things, as we see with plastic surgeons doing breast implants.
Yeah.
And the palate at the roof of the mouth is used by these plastic surgeons to put in the markings that would show up on an X-ray, and a future examination would identify what that person has as extras. Ground positioning being the simplest to do. A microphone, the next. The medulla is the speaker. So you've got a number of adaptations to be fitted in there, and cleavage is linked to the word leaf or leaves, and leaves are where the tree extracts from the air and from sunlight. So there probably was thought in describing that. Now, if you notice recently in the last few years, more and more conservative type employments, such as bank tellers, are either allowing or obliging women to use their assets when they have a role of dealing with the public. Cashiers, especially, are wearing much lower cut dresses and blouses, and are constantly having to reach for certain bills down under the counter, which seems to help business. I can't, for the like of me, figure out how they would have got that word across in a bank. I suspect it's probably not done there. It was probably done in a secret society of women. The fifth degree of Eastern Star is probably the likely place where the word was given. Of course, Evening and Morning Star is linked to the word Venus, which is linked to revenue. Revenue is the IRS, so they're probably funding. The IRS is probably funding the new slave women. They are, in fact, the third gender. A lot of people are mistakenly taking them for women. Genetically engineered, they fit a profile. Is more likely to be that of women. India used to put a dot on the forehead.
Yeah, you're saying the third eye. But it
could very well just be there to say, I am one of these genetically engineered persons. Third eye is necessary if you're going to implant camera of some kind. Of course, now they have very tiny ones linked to fiber optics I guess you could do almost anything.
What do you know about Jenny? She was telling me about like South America, and like there's an order over there. I forgot. I think the name is Mayo in their name.
It's a play on the word ami.
Yeah.
Friend. Mm-hmm. Just like you find that word in Islam.
Yeah. Basically, like they're replacing, you were saying, like all the presidents with
they're moving up the line. You see, the French Revolution was a time in which people identified the fact that many people at the top were being dominated by women that had been sent from other countries, such as Austria, for example, or Hungary, or Spain. Many of these women were basically the power behind the throne, getting the king or emperor to do their bidding. And when the French Revolution came around, the people demonstrated their knowledge of that fact by sending them to the guillotine along with their husband. Now, there would have been a reorganization in the world of women in order to prevent that kind of loss again. Because if you're taking out just one woman at the top, one woman at the top, you're losing all control over the system. So it's much more likely that in the second go-around, which we call democracy, they began the infiltration through the post office clerks. And by culling the mail at the post office, they were able to delay the arrival of important documents and therefore cause things to happen.
Was that your experience, getting your mail?
Yeah, I have seen that happen at the post office for a long period of time. My uncle was a highly placed executive in the post office in Ottawa, and he was my mother's brother. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that something occurred where he knew too much. He ended up going to the hospital with a broken arm and died. I don't know too many people who die of a broken arm, but that's what happened to him. And if the revenge was against his wife, there is some evidence that they were punishing her. 2 weeks later, her son killed himself on a motorcycle. So, post office is a great place to begin this process. But as we have seen recently in the application for sponsorship of Jenny coming to Canada, I personally have run across 2 and maybe 3 women involved in the Department of Citizenship. Ship is a word that translates into hip, fat bottom ladies. also translates into very intelligent in phi beta, gamma, or whatever the top 10% of women in college is. It's because the PT is interchangeable. It's also the word shit, which links directly to coprolite, meaning genetically engineered. And the method of operation that they have used is I send in my application. I get a phone call from the minister's executive assistant at the department's office in Mississauga that deals with sponsorships. But she's in the minister's office. And she says, this is intended for the minister. The minister doesn't work here. He works out of Ottawa. And she says, I'll send you back your documentation. I said, no, I'm applying for sponsorship, and I want the minister to see the entire file. So when you're done with it, send it to the minister. So she ended up sending it to the minister, and another executive assistant sends it back to me and says, the payment was made by check. You can't make the payment by check. You have to make it by deposit at a bank on the official receipt by the bank. So I go to the bank and I give them the $550, get them to give me a receipt. They have their receipt, I have my receipt, and a receipt to send in. I send it in again, so this is the second time it arrives there. Another executive assistant takes the package and says, I can't answer your questions about your wife unless she includes a document that gives you permission to access her privacy. And I'm taking this opportunity to send you back your documents. So there you are. 3 times I deal with women in the department who have received my application. Now, they have to admit, because they gave me a number when it first arrived, and the bank gave me a receipt for the money, which they still have. But when I call the department and I say, what's the status of my application for sponsorship, first thing they ask is, what's my number? And then to verify it's me, what's my birth date, what's my address, and all that stuff. When they're satisfied that it's me, they say, we don't have one. We don't have a file for you. I said, what do you mean you don't have a file? Well, obviously, in order to delay or prevent Jenny's arrival, and I don't know for certain at this point if they're doing it because they're pissed off at me or at Jenny or at both of us. They apparently didn't copy the file. They just sent it back. And then when the time comes for her entry, they'll say there is no file. Now, I've written to the minister and I've asked him to override the exclusion order given at the border. An executive assistant calls me and tells me he can't do that. It's the Minister of Public Safety. And yet, on their own website, it says it can be done by either one of them. On their own website. So you're dealing with clerks.
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
Under the name of executive assistant, and they're hindering the operation of the minister by making decisions to prevent the file from getting into his hands. And I've seen that happen as we do the faxing to all the deputy ministers, that it's going on in all the departments. And some departments even answered that this was not meant for us, even though it was meant for the deputy minister, and it's his fax it's sent so that they would have the information, and they've written, will be destroyed. So how can one operate as a citizen of a country when you can't even write to the person who's got the responsibility for doing the job without couriers or whatever name you want to give to these women along the way? They're running the government. They're making the decision at another level. And sending, like the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, he's basically being kept busy building monuments to Air India for the airplane crash that they lost some years ago. He's going across Canada on totally irrelevant stuff, when at the same time we're being told that caregiver and nursing in psychiatric and geriatric homes is the most important occupation that needs to be filled in Canada. And you have these 25-year-old border guards making decisions that should in fact be made by the minister. The whole story about not letting her in is so irrelevant in the context of her occupation, her income, her age, and the need for Canada, that for somebody to make a decision at the border and do it in a very arrogant and ignorant manner, and not having it overridden by the superintendent or the minister, shows a total lack of functioning by that department. And the Minister of Public Safety, if you believe in coding, his postal code is OP8, opiate. So he's the Minister of Drugs. Yes. If the coding of his postal code has any meaning, and I certainly believe it does, because the post office is the cash cow for paying off politicians. I've dealt with issues where equipment for the post office in Mississauga was to be purchased, and an engineer put in a report that it just didn't do the job, wasn't fast enough, and was asked to rewrite the report. And he went back and rewrote did the entire testing and came back and said, my conclusion the first time was right. This equipment doesn't satisfy the requirements that we put out on our tender. And he got fired. And then we find out that the post office had already purchased a whole batch of these machines at about twice the current value of them on the open market. And according to the engineer, people were coming to the headquarters of the post office with brown paper bags full of cash and handing them from office to office. So, that's why they divide places like the post office and the port of entry into agencies, because somehow it allows them to hide the cash flow from these places. So the post office would be from buying equipment at inflated prices, and the port of entry would be to allow drugs into the country. I don't think anybody in his right mind believes that there isn't some system that allows drugs into every country of the world. And the most logical place is the port of entry. And if the minister has a code opiate, that kind of confirms what happens.
Yeah, because I understand. I see how drugs come into the country in America, through Mexico, South America, but Canada is a bit different. Think about it. In
order to get to Canada, it has to come in mostly from the U.S. after it got into the U.S. One way of bringing it in some of the stuff we've read in the past, is having the, the department that distributes currency, bills, federal revenue, or federal, what do they call it? People that make the dollar bills and the $100 bills.
Treasury? No, it's
there's another word. Treasury.
Federal Reserve.
Is one of them. Yeah.
Federal Reserve.
They were in fact at one time, the planes would unload dollar bills in one town, pick up drugs, and take it to the next place. A lot of that was drugs being flown into Alaska, and then Federal Reserve, that's the name of the plane, would carry the drugs to the next place. I have seen the railways being used to carry drugs, and what they would do is they would drop them off when they're picking up cattle at a feedlot, where they have to pick up cattle to take them to the slaughterhouse. The guy who basically cleaned up the feedlot, gathering up the manure for distribution on farms, would take the package of drugs, put it in the bottom of the truck, and load the truck up with manure. So, which cop do you know who'd go through a stack of cow shit in order to look for a package of drugs? That's the way they were distributing drugs all across Alberta. So, all of this stuff is linked to port of entry. just like
Joey.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, thinking that.
Okay, and think of the Po River, and think of Po as one of the two souls of Buddhists. What better system for distributing drugs when you give religious people the right to enter the countries without going through the normal customs checks? Nuns can do it, priests can do it, Buddhist monks can do it. Hey, you couldn't get a better distribution network than religion for bringing in drugs.
But they have, like, as far as I can see, like, when you look at different gangs, that's like their main function.
Yeah, well, they are the retailers.
Yeah, on the local.
You know? So you got a wholesaler, which is religion, and you got a retailer, which is gangs. Now, if you look at the operation of Ogdensburg, there's some funny stuff going on in Ogdensburg with Amish coming into town with their horse and buggy. and they're not even supposed to have anything to do with anything automated or buying prefabricated foods and stuff like that, yet they're going off to Walmart and to Price Chopper and places like that, coming out with stacks of processed foods and putting them on their local buses, which they're not even supposed to be using. All kinds of things are happening with the Amish, and of course their name has Ami in it as well.
Yeah. Do you think they're doing that to prepare for what's coming in the...
Well, it looks like they're kind of stocking up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not especially for themselves, but when you look at Ogdensburg, the number of empty rooms that exist in that place is amazing. I mean, the population of Ogdensburg is supposed to be about 11,000, 12,000 people. Yet, when you look at places like reformatories, prisons, hospitals, hotels that are closed, all of these places are institutions that are closed, but yet have a total of about 4,000 beds, and that these places are being maintained.
Yeah, people go from prison. People go from prison like down over here, and they go up there to serve their time.
Yeah, but it's only a fraction of the number of rooms that are available that are being used.
Yeah.
So, you know, what do you do in a place like Ogdensburg with 4,000 empty, they're not fancy rooms, but they're a place to sleep. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense that if the upper echelon of whatever group knows what's about to happen, have been given room numbers, make your way to Ogdensburg on such and such a day, and you will be there when it rises and the water surrounds you but doesn't touch you. And then, of course, you'll be the survivors along with Canada, and the seaway will be empty. It'll just be a moat of mud, and you can walk across. And who's going to keep Ogdensburg out of Canada if it's the only place that has survived? You look at the arc around it. At one end, it's got a place called Watertown, and at the other place, it's got Messina. So if you're in a mess at one end and you're in the water at the other end, what do you got in the middle? The town in the middle is called Canton, after the Chinese, and the one next to it is called Potsdam, after the Germans. So we know that the Germans came from the Middle East. They were the Judean priests who had been trained in Zoroastrianism in Iran, called Persia at the time. So the priests of, they're called Judean, Judah at the time, is basically Jordan. And they've got their place reserved in Potsdam, Potsdam, like in Saddam, and the Chinese have got their place called Canton. Now, if these four places disappear off the map, what does that mean? It basically means that these people are on a need to know. They are assisting the development of Ogdensburg as a pathway to Canada, but because they know too much, they'll be destroyed by the water when it comes. They're just kind of low-level pawns in the game that'll be washed away, because all you have to do is you look at the map that shows the topography and the height above sea level, and everything in that arc goes down as it goes south. So the water will flow. If too much water coming down Lake Ontario from Lake Superior can't fit into the seaway. And the distance between the three bridges, one is at Thousand Islands, the middle one's at Ogdensburg, and the eastern one is at Messina, Cornwall. There's a narrow gully there, canal, that can't hold the water from Lake Superior. When it hits there, it's going to automatically flow south. The first place it'll run over is a place called Fort Drum. The second place it runs over is Watertown, Syracuse, and then as it goes east, Canton, Potsdam, Messina, and then back into the St. Lawrence at Montreal. Montreal is, of course, based on the word Troy, Mont-Royal. So Royal is basically a play on Troy. And the place where the water begins in Lake Superior is called Ile Royale. So try to imagine a wave of water 1,000 feet high. Where do you go? Well, if isostasy works the way physicists saying it does, when something goes underwater, something else has to rise, the safest place, the whole United States, is Ogdensburg. That's why the 4,000 rooms are waiting for their tenants. And yet, when Jenny went to ask the Grey Nuns and told them that she was unemployed, 55 years old, and she was a director of nursing, and what she would like from them is a job in one of the hospitals or hospices, and if they couldn't do that, could they supply her with one of the rooms? The answer was absolutely not. What have they got to hide from Jenny? What is it that she would automatically notice if she were working there? And it wasn't just the Grey Nuns. It was also the Protestant hospital and the state hospital. All of them basically said they wanted to hire her, but their human relations people didn't seem to have the same opinion. And this is a woman who's carrying a document that says she has just finished employment for 3 years and has raised the status of a large psychiatric hospital to the level of 5-star. What is it? Is it just that people are afraid of losing their job to somebody who has more competence? You might explain that once. But in all the hospitals in Ogdensburg, I don't think so.
How does one circumvent executive assistance?
Creation suggests 2 methods. One is water coming at you as a inland tsunami. The second one is radon that gives you lung cancer.
What do you do about the people that are in Ogdensburg after the water goes by, and then they have all that, the radon that's hitting close to there? They're right by that river, right?
Yeah.
So they're right on the water.
Oh, there won't be any water at Ogdensburg when it rises. Because when it rises, the water from the lake just can't get in. It's going to be too high. So it's just going to be a gully. The water will be south, and it will be heading towards the Hudson River and past the capital there, Albany, and working its way down to Flushing. I mean, that's where the radon's going.
How are you going to avoid the radon? Because it's going to be up there, too, where you're at, right?
Well, unless there is a special way of redirecting it here, we are beyond the effect. We're already 300 feet above sea level, and water is going down from level it's at now, and will not have any effect here. And since we're part of the Canadian Shield, we should be rising even more here.
Yeah.
Maybe to the point where the rock, which is 23 feet below and 100 feet thick, then becomes a rock on the surface.
Oh, below you?
Hey?
Are you talking about the structure below you, or are you just saying?
Yeah, I'm talking about the structure below me, not the Canadian Shield, which is still further down.
Yeah. Have you been now when the ice starts to melt, do you get flooding? Because your water table is so shallow because that structure's right there. Do you get?
We get flooding directed to us. In the middle of the winter, when it's 25 below, I'm getting water in my sump pump.
Oh, wow. Really?
Up until the end of January over the last few years. I've received a letter from the insurance company, along with everybody else in the area, who have said that flooding is not covered by any insurance. and they're talking about water going into basements.
Yeah.
Now, there is no water around here. You know, the Rideau River is 1.5 miles away or something. Maybe even more than that. Certainly the creek can't rise to this level because we are at least a kilometer or 1.5 kilometers from the creek. There isn't that much water over there. I suspect that there is a tunnel that is under County Road 18, which we live on. And we are about 35 minutes from the St. Lawrence Seaway. County Road 18 comes out of Kempville, past our front door, and goes all the way to the St. Lawrence Seaway at Prescott. If one had a tunnel underneath on the other side, they would end up here. Now, the number 18 is a strangely important number for a couple of reasons. And if you noticed one thing, in Egypt this week, Saddam Hussein didn't leave as he said he was going to leave on the 17th day. And I basically suggested that probably it's because he was still standing in front of the cash machine trying to get his billions out, $200 at a time, and was swearing at the machine. But more likely, the reason for him not leaving is he had to wait till the 18th day. Now, if you reverse 18 and start talking about 81, then you have to look at words like NATO, 8-0.
Penultimate?
Yeah. There are a lot of words that have 8-0 in it. Yeah. Potato, tomato. One grows above ground, one is tubular, grows below ground.
Potatoes are big in Ireland, too, right?
Yeah. Ireland survived for a number of years on potatoes until they had a famine because the potato blight destroyed the entire crop. The reason they were all destroyed is because the king had passed laws saying that anything but potatoes had to be turned over to the rulers of the realm, king and all the other divisions underneath. So farmers, not being stupid, just didn't grow anything else, grew potatoes. Without realizing once everybody grows potatoes and a blight comes by, you have no food to eat. Mind you, that's how I got to be in Canada, I suppose, because my ancestors left Ireland to come and build a canal in Ottawa. All of that area around here is called Oxford-on-Rideau. The Rideau River is the river that goes by the closest frontier, and the Governor General of Canada lives in a place called Rideau Hall. Now, we know that A and I are interchangeable. Therefore, the word can be radeau. Radeau means raft, French. So the difference between a raft and a raft is that a raft has no control.
Yeah.
Goes with the flow. It's in Leonardo, Radeau, Da Vinci. It's in radon. It's in NORAD. They're looking up at the sky when it's really coming at them from underneath. So a lot of places you'll find the letters RADO or the interchangeable letters like an I instead of an O. Or
the radio has it without, if you take the I out.
Yeah, radio. And if you look at the Desdemona typeface, the ampersand, which means and or DNA, that sign, if you double it up, as I did with the other pictographs,
pretzel,
it gives you the letters to radio in there. Radio is the means by which they brainwash.
Yeah.
Especially if it's playing in background, or people turn it on when they go to bed at night.
And radio frequency, that's what cell phones run on. They run off a radio.
There's other, I know there's like another wave or another frequency that most people don't even use. That's used probably by something else.
There's infrared, there's ultraviolet, there's radio, TV. There's a whole spectrum.
Yeah.
And outside of all of that is the communications that exist in water, that whales, dolphins can communicate at a distance through the water.
Do you think that that the system find a way to synthesize that form of communication?
Absolutely, because if you read that piece today, they're talking about reptiles, and the first one there, if you look at it, it says batrachia. So a bat would be a cave dweller.
Yeah.
And they changed it to a separate class, amphibia. So obviously you go from being a cave dweller to somebody living in water. So not only do you need a gill like McGill University in Montreal, but you also probably have some communications network underwater. The best access, I would suggest, to a cone volcano, an extinct cone volcano, would be through caves underwater.
Mm-hmm.
I'll run out and tell you tomorrow morning, though. But that's what we're basically here to do, is to define all of the evidence. And the evidence suggests that the Navy is in charge. Navy have AV in it, phonetically, and that the Navy is the oldest spy network in the world. Their original name was Phoenicians, and Phoenicians deal with phonetic languaging.
Yeah, by the way, that word, the executive assistant, that word is linked to Assisi.
Yeah, it all came in on an ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus came in on an ass, and that was symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else comes in on an ass. When I asked my lawyer for a name for our political wing of the future, first thing that came out of his mouth was Assembly of Independent Canadians.
Mm.
I didn't know the connection at the time, but I sure do now.
Yeah.
The Quebec government is called the National Assembly.
Yeah. A lot of change is brought about by assassinations.
Yes.
Oh, that also reminded me before what you were saying about the tunnel by your house. And didn't you, was it last year, you have that rumbling going on right underfoot, right? Like someone was trying.
Plus, we had a perfectly good highway, County Road 18. When I arrived here 10 years ago, they had just resurfaced it, and it was perfectly good. Last summer, they ripped it all up, and they made it back into something I've never seen on a highway before, but it doesn't look like a roadbed anymore. It looks like the blacktop one would find at an airport or on a aircraft carrier. It's all very rough, and they've widened it, and they're taking wires down from across it, but it's not solid like asphalt. It's almost like uncured asphalt, which suggests to me that if they're not planning to land planes on it, which they probably will when they move the Hornets from Trenton, that were they to send water through the tunnel and it would arrive at this area, it would break through. It would basically turn into a river or a creek and lift it all off. I suspect that some of that is an attempt at sending water by here. But don't have the tools to get at it. If I could start my excavation beyond the surface stuff, I could probably get a better inkling of exactly what they have in mind.
Now, is the surface of it?
They can move people from Ogdensburg across to Prescott, which, by the way, is pre-Scott.
Egyptians, right?
The Picts who guarded Egypt moved into the mountains, the highlands of Scotland. And so they could move people by raft across the St. Lawrence and drop them off in Prescott, and they're right there on the road that leads here. Or they could have a tunnel underground that leads, that would allow some transportation vehicle to cross over and come out here, such as you have in old department stores where they used to move papers and money around by suction.
Oh, yeah.
Or they're going to redirect water directly into it, and that flood of water, when it arrives here, will break through. So there's three possibilities that here. Got to remember that where Jenny is, Ogdensburg, and here on the farm, There are occasions the water in the well, which is what we use, 125 feet down, gurgles. You can hear it in the toilet and in the bathtub. Gurgling that's going on underground has to be air being sucked in underground. And that would happen if the Canadian Shield, which is shaped like a V, and this is the base of the V, is lifting, it would be sucking air in there. We can hear air gurgling.
Yeah.
So, this is all what people would call speculation. But when you start adding the pieces up, it kind of makes a pretty damning picture of what's going on.
Yeah.
Ottawa senators, 8-0 senators, have started dumping their star players, starting with a guy called Fisher. That's like flushing the toilet.
Oh yeah, there was a question. Jenny mentioned. I asked, and she said, "I'm better off asking you." Said, how is it that say somebody like me who's looked at your material, looked at your work, and I'm able to understand what you're saying, but other people they can't understand what you're saying.
You already know that answer.
Huh?
For you, it's simple to me. It's because you basically are black. You come from a stock that came from Africa directly, more recently than the rest of us. Our genetics has been played with. White people's genetics and Asian people's genetics has been played with, and would be a lot more difficult for ancient history to be known among Caucasians and Asians than it would be recorded in the spine, in the gray matter DNA of black people. Therefore, unless some other circumstance, as in mine and Jenny's having a relationship to Cro-Magnon, exists, Caucasians and Asians wouldn't grasp instinctively what we're talking about. It would require a lot more work on their part.
But it seems like the Caucasians, from like the engineering, weren't they like designed to be more imaginative? Flying and stuff.
They were designed for a job that required thinking on the spot, whereas Asians were designed for a job that required following instructions. That's why Confucius is basically a bureaucrat. He is writing the books of instructions. Same thing with people who join religion. They're following a book of instructions that leads them nowhere. But Caucasians as a group, the Golden Hordes, were created, the first batch in the year 2000 BC, and sent to Finland. The second batch in the year 0 or thereabouts, and sent from North America to Finland. First batch had come from the Himalayas. The second batch comes here. Within their way of thinking, it's random access memory, whereas the Asian is read-only memory, ROM memory. It's the Roma way, and random access is the scapegoat way.
How about the African? What was what's their thinking?
More original clan mother type of thing, so the link is more direct there. But because there's a link to Cro-Magnon in certain people, Denny and I coming at it from opposite directions, Cro-Magnon as the focal point, ours was recessive. Therefore, something had to jumpstart it. We were, like everybody else, programmed, but at one stage of our lives, something happens that jump-started it.
Yeah. I feel kind of the opposite. I feel like I've always been this way.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I've always been...
If you read Plato, and there's another Ato.
Yeah, I know.
Plato says, all humans have all knowledge within them.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of spending your life rediscovering what you already know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how they build computers these days. They put most of the programs in the machine and charge you an access fee.
To unlock it, right? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I feel more linked to Clan Mother, I guess, as far as the way I come about things with my organization, as far as looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I guess that survival of the race of everyone else is put forward, you know, like it's more, I think having my son really brought that out of me of like, because I'm basically the one who's with him every day, so I'm seeing, it's like bringing back.
Do you have a link to the Cheyenne?
Sorry?
There was a native group that you had links to.
Oh wow. There was a native girl that I used to know. There was a native girl I used to know in Canada, Glenn, by Cheyenne.
Hey?
There was a native girl that I used to know in Canada, in Ottawa, called Cheyenne.
The Cheyenne comes from the French word chien.
Dog.
I'm linked to Cherokee. Like my great-grandmother was Cherokee on my mom's side, the black side, and Blackfoot. So I have mainly those two.
Blackfoot suggests close to the soul, and Cherokee has the key.
Chero. Like Chero is, isn't there a French guy named Chero? Something. Jacques Chero?
French means darling.
Remember Jacques Chero? Chero? Cherokee.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. I got some work I got to do outside.
Just don't, you can tell your wife that I didn't forget, and I'm every day making preparations to go pay her a visit. So, and I might be bringing some people with me. So I'm just working out that right now, and then
I'm going to use a few visitors.
Good.
Although she can't put them up like we could on the farm. But
no, I'm bringing people that would have to come with me anyway if I did leave. So, so I want everyone to kind of.
And it'd be like a tourist guide, right? Like kind of show you.
Well, I kind of want
slow down on things.
I kind of need Jenny as far as I'm bringing my son's mother, my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Because I mean, she knows it's crunch time. It might be the final time, and she knows all about going up there, and she's with it. But I just would like Jenny from a woman's perspective, just to give her a little, there's only so much guys can say,
Intuitive languaging.
Yeah.
Between women.
Yep. There's something about it when like an older woman speaks. Sometimes they kind of grasp things a little.
Yeah.
Sometimes not even what they say. It's like I noticed something with women, like it's like my mom, like she can. I don't know why a lot of women do that. Like they'll say one thing but mean something totally different. Why is that?
What you have to do is look at what they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Match it up with what they say.
So why is that? Why is that a woman like that and men are more like...
More abused. Women have been abused totally from the beginning, and therefore it's much more difficult for them to take risks.
Yeah.
Okay?
All right, Glenn.
I got to go.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Stay warm.
Yeah. Bye for now.
All right.
Bye.